We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Friday, kind of a busy, crazy week like they all are. I just want to remind you folks that I'm going to be out of town. I'm leaving tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, and I'm going to Las Vegas, going with my wife, my brother, and my nephew. Why are we going to Vegas? I don't fucking know. My brother and nephew were going. They asked my wife and I if we wanted to go. I said, what the fuck we else got to do? And so we're heading there. Some might think we're going to go see the Vikings game because they're playing down there. And I don't know, maybe we will, only if I can get in cheap. I'm not really that excited about it. If I really want to see it, I'll go down to Caesars or Circa and watch it on the big screen TVs. I can't sit through a whole football game anymore. It just doesn't keep my attention. I know my brother wants to see the Sphere, and if we can get in there, that'd be kind of cool. But there's one big reason that I'm excited about going to Las Vegas. It's because Old Soul, podcast favorite, she lives in Vegas. And I asked her, I said, if we come down there, would you mind having lunch with us? Because I'd love to meet you in person. And she's happy to do that. So I will get a chance to meet Old Soul. I'm excited about that. Great lady, very smart, very articulate. She is truly an old soul. She's only 43 years old, but she sounds like she has a lot of wisdom, and she does. And it's always a pleasure to talk to her. So now that, because I'm going to be in Las Vegas, now normally when I'm on a trip, I'll do a podcast from wherever I'm at, if it's my wife and I. But with my brother and my nephew there, it's Las Vegas. I don't know that I'll have the opportunity to record a podcast on the day of. But don't worry, plan for this. I'm not a Republican. I can see beyond the end of my nose. But so on Sunday, you'll get the regular Saturday show. I'll do that Friday night before I leave, obviously. And but on Sunday, there'll be a show with Ed. I'm recording a show with Ed later today, and that will air Sunday. And believe it or not, on Monday, I will air a show that I already recorded with Old Soul. So that's exciting. You like Ed, you like Old Soul. I won't be doing it like I normally do it, but there'll be great shows and you'll be sufficiently informed and entertained. And it's particularly interesting talking to Old Soul when I did. When I was setting this trip up to go to Las Vegas, I was emailing back and forth with her about setting up a time to meet and all that kind of stuff. And then when that shooting happened, our emails kind of got stilted and stopped. And she says, "Yeah, I can't really talk right now. I'll get back to you." And I said, "No problem. What's going on?" And you remember the shooting at UNLV. Well, unfortunately, when that shooting was going on, her daughter and her nephew were at UNLV. Thankfully, they're safe and nothing happened, but it was very traumatic. And during the time it was going on, when we were emailing back and forth, Old Soul was worried, no question. So we had a chance to talk about that on the podcast. And it's an interesting thing to get a perspective of somebody who's in that position. Even though this happens a lot, we don't talk to many people who have experienced that. And she had some great insight with that. So be looking for that on Monday. And when I see her on Sunday or Monday, I think I'm going to try to get her to do a TikTok with me. She doesn't really go on TikTok at all. She found this podcast and the TikToks on YouTube. So I said, "Do you mind going on TikTok with me? You and me, we'll just do a couple of minutes, cross promote the podcast and let people see you in a TikTok situation." So she's consented to do that. So we'll set that up. And when I see her, you'll all have a chance to see her on TikTok and on YouTube because it'll be put there as well. So anyway, we had a busy week, a lot of things going on, a lot of craziness, and we should probably get to it. Before we do get into it, though, we have some emails as we commonly do. First one comes from Rebecca. She says, "Hi, Mike. Oh my God, I'm so confused. How are the 10 fake electors in Wisconsin still allowed to hold any kind of office after trying to overthrow the government? They agreed to withdraw their fake filings. How are the filings even a thing if they're fake? They admitted Biden won and they won't do it again. Big deal. What a load of crap. Why aren't all the fake electors in every state being punished? Lie, cheat, and steal, and you can run for office. Love the podcast. Thanks for all you do. Much appreciated, Rebecca." I hadn't been following what was going on in Wisconsin at all. Of course, we know that we have some fake electors being indicted in Nevada and some other states. I guess some states handle it differently, and because they've got a Republican legislature in Wisconsin, they're probably just going to let it ride. Maybe not. I have to wonder, though, if there aren't going to be some federal inquiries into these fake electors, because they not only affected their state, but they affected a federal election. So while they might be getting off the hook in their state of Wisconsin, they may run into some shit federally speaking. So we'll see what's going on. You know, we know that Georgia, the fake electors are indicted as well. So I wouldn't suggest they're off the hook completely as yet. There's a lot of time and a lot of things they have to go through, so we'll see. But frankly, you know, as much as I like Wisconsin, I'm surprised by nothing that happens in Wisconsin. It's a weird place. We've got Minnesota, which is this very liberal place and run very well. And then Wisconsin, totally different. We got the gerrymandering and all that shit, and the Republicans running roughshod over there, even though they've got a Democratic governor. I don't know what to say about Wisconsin, but I'm frequently disappointed by their politics. All right, the next email, Jennifer. She said, "Why is no one talking about the dilemma DJT getting elected would do to our armed forces? What if they disobey orders? This could pin unit against unit, branch against branch. What if a commander or major disobeyed? I find this to be very interesting." Jennifer, I get what you mean. If Donald Trump was reelected, it would be a disaster. If you watch the media these days, that's all you see. Well, if Donald Trump gets to be president, it's going to be a fascist state. We're going to have this problem. Who's going to be on his cabinet? Who's going to be running the DOJ? And you get this pounded on you all day, every day. But here's the problem. He's not going to be president. He doesn't have a path to become president. It's just not going to happen. So I've told you, he lost in 2020 by 7 million. The only thing that can happen in 2024 is that it's worse. He's done nothing to improve his lot. He doesn't have more support or more votes. He's not going to be elected president. I promise you that. Anyhow, last email, Kara. Mike, I'm listening to today's show and I had to pause it for this email. You're talking about the ass crack of a margin for Republicans in the House and how it's getting more narrow. Did anyone else break out into a thunderous roll of laughter, or was it just me? I don't know. Fucking beautiful, isn't it? I can't stand any of them, but I relish in the irony of it all. McCarthy is a puddle of self-loathing who's found a way to grab a fistful of relevance before the door hits him on the way out. Santos is a bonus, and I won't be surprised if more will quit. Thank you for your continued commitment to your audience. Have a great day, Kara. I know what she's saying. You know, the Republicans failed. They got aced out by Kevin McCarthy, and that is funny. But here's the thing, Kara. They do this every day. They fuck up every day. They're embarrassed every day. I can only laugh so much. The thing is that watching them screw up the way they do gives me a lot of confidence. I said this to Old Soul in the show we recorded. You know, they had everything going for them when they tried to overthrow the government and overturn the election, and they still failed. They have hearing after hearing after hearing, thinking, oh, we've got the facts, and they're always embarrassed. If for no other reason, you shouldn't be afraid of the Republicans because they're a hapless lot. They're the apple dumpling gang. They always fail. They're incompetent, they're inept, and they're a joke. And I have to believe they even know they're a joke. You can't be continually failing and not recognize what the fuck is going on. It is funny to watch them fail, and you almost have to laugh so you don't cry, because the ramifications of the things they do on this country are can be devastating, certainly damaging. And I'm just thankful these fucks aren't smarter than they actually are, because they could do some real fucking damage. All right. Now we know what's going on with Hunter Biden. He's had an indictment, and he's waiting to go to trial. And of course, Congress wants to, the Republicans in Congress want to have him testify. They come out and they say, we want him to testify in public, in private, whatever you want to do. We want you to testify, thinking that he would try to avoid it, that he'd be afraid. Turns out Hunter Biden isn't afraid. He said, yeah, I'll come, but you got to do it in public. And even in spite they offered it to him originally, they said, oh, no, 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 not in public. And the reason they don't want it in public is because, once again, they're going to look foolish. They have no evidence. Hunter Biden isn't a dumb guy. He's an attorney, and he'll probably make them look foolish. I mean, frankly, any of us could make them look foolish because they're fools. Anyway, in spite of all that, Hunter Biden was indicted again on 9 tax charges in California on Thursday, as a special counsel investigates into the business dealings of the president's sons. Now, the new charges come in addition to the federal firearms charges in Delaware, alleging Hunter Biden broke a law against drug users having guns in 2018. He had been previously expected to plead guilty to a misdemeanor tax charge as part of the plea deal with the prosecutors, who said he failed to pay taxes on $4 million in personal income in 2017 and 2018. Defense attorneys have signaled they plan to fight any new charges. Now, keep in mind, he's already paid back all that money. The stuff he's being put through for these taxes are far and away more serious or more problematic than most people would get. They talk about a 2-tier judicial system. There's actually multiple tiers, and Hunter Biden's getting no favors. In fact, he's probably being treated worse than any other Joe that would be in this same situation. Now, of course, he had a deal set up. The agreement imploded in July after a judge raised questions about it. It had also been pilloried as a sweetheart deal by the Republicans, investigating nearly every aspect of Hunter Biden's business dealings, as well as the Justice Department's handling of the case. Oh, they got all kinds of motherfucking problems. They keep running Hunter Biden through the ringer because that's all they have. It's what I've said before. Joe Biden's been president for 3 years. He been in Congress for 50 years. And the best dirt they can find is his son, his laptop, and deals that they have no evidence for. They went through all this back in the Trump administration, and they let it go because they had nothing. This is how lame they are, and this is how weak their case is. They have to go back in time, pull it out of the closet, dust it off, and try to do it again, even though they already know that there's nothing there. It's not about finding Hunter Biden's insidious little plan to work a deal with Joe. It's about trying to throw mud and smear Joe. They don't care if there's anything there or not. Doesn't fucking matter. All they care about is it makes Joe Biden look bad. And once again, I have to say, this is all you got. This is all you've got. You're either incompetent or there's nothing to be found. Well, we had something going on down in Texas. A Texas judge ruled Thursday that a pregnant woman in Dallas can get an abortion she requested through an unprecedented emergency legal petition filed on Tuesday. So we know that Texas is one of those states that essentially outlawed abortion. But this woman will be allowed to get an abortion because she's got a very compelling story. Kate Cox is a 31-year-old mother of two, had filed a request for a temporary restraining order that would allow her physician to get around the state's severely restrictive abortion laws. Now, Molly Duane, a senior staff attorney with the Center for Reproductive Rights, which helped file the case, confirmed to reporters that the order does allow her abortion to proceed. She declined to give any more information about when or where Cox would seek to terminate her pregnancy, citing safety concerns for everyone involved in the procedure. Now, the judge's decision may still be appealed by the state, which has been aggressively defending its abortion laws, but there's no obvious avenue in which to appeal, according to the Center of Reproductive Rights. Now, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, that criminal crook motherfucker, responded Thursday afternoon with a cryptic statement saying the decision will not insulate hospitals, doctors, or anyone else from a civil and criminal liability for violating Texas's abortion laws. Meaning the judge said she could have an abortion, but if any of you hospitals or doctors do the abortion, you could be criminally charged. What a wonderful guy. Paxton also sent a letter to the hospital that employs Cox's physician, Dr. Damala Carson, hinting at legal action. Now, this is an interesting circumstance for this young woman. Cox is 20 weeks pregnant. Her fetus has a fatal genetic anomaly called trisomy 18. And if she remains pregnant, Cox could face deadly complications or lose the ability to have more children in the future, according to the complaint. She's also experiencing pain during the pregnancy. It's not a matter if I will have to say goodbye, but when Cox said in a statement included in her complaint, she continued, I do not want to continue the pain and suffering that has plagued this pregnancy. I do not want to put my body through the risk of continuing this pregnancy. I do not want to continue until my baby dies in my belly, or I have to deliver a stillborn baby, or one where life will be measured in hours or days, full of medical tubes and machinery. Trisomy 18 babies that survive birth often suffer cardiac or respiratory failure. I do not want my baby to arrive in this world only to watch her suffer a heart attack or suffocation. I desperately want the chance to try for another baby, and I want to access the medical care now that gives me the best chance at another baby. So while she wants to terminate this pregnancy, one of the reasons she wants to do it is if she doesn't terminate this pregnancy, it may preclude her from having other children. You see the confusion here. You see the problem. And apparently Ken Paxton and Greg Abbott don't fucking care. Whatever pain and suffering and risk to life and limb that this woman is going through, the fact that this baby would be born only to suffer and die shortly thereafter, or the fact that this woman would now essentially be in a position where she couldn't have children again. This is a perfect example of abortion and extenuating circumstances. You would think somebody like Ken Paxton or Abbott would be compassionate enough to understand the extenuating circumstances, but they don't give a fuck. District Judge Maya Guerra Gamble said while issuing her ruling that the idea that Miss Cock wants so desperately to be a parent and this law may have her lose that ability is shocking and would be a genuine miscarriage of justice. The judge is a Democrat, first elected to her position in 2018. Now, the temporary restraining order only applies to Cox's current pregnancy and only for a period of 14 days. A separate case challenging Texas abortion law is currently working its way through the state court system, brought by 20 women who say they were denied appropriate abortion care, but it would take weeks or months to resolve that case. Zarowski versus Texas seeks to clarify exactly in what circumstances doctors may terminate pregnancies. See, that's the thing. It's very opaque. There are certain terms that you could get an abortion, but they've never specified what that means exactly. And they did that on purpose. They want to outlaw all abortions, but give the impression that they're being compassionate. Well, they're not. Otherwise, they wouldn't look to sue the doctors that Miss Cox was given the okay by a judge to get an abortion. Now, Texas bans nearly all abortions with limited exceptions to address the life of the mother. The state's conservative leaders say the law is sufficient. Yeah, a bunch of old white guys that don't have to deal with abortion at all. But medical professionals argue that the language is so vague that it prevents them from providing care in all but the most life or death situations out of fear of reprisal. Penalties for breaking the law include prison, steep fines, and the loss of medical licenses. Now, Gamble wrote in her order that Cox's current circumstances met the medical exemption under Texas law. But Ken Paxton, the Attorney General, still wants to make it difficult. See, this is why you can't trust Republicans. Oh, we'll have these exceptions, but when you want to try to use those exceptions legally, they still want to fuck with you. We need to get Democrats in power in the House and the Senate. And the moment we do, we need to codify Roe v. Wade. 75% of the country supports Roe v. Wade. These fucks don't care what the American public want. They just want what they want. Now, Donald Trump, on Thursday evening, he lashed out at his own attorney, whom the former president said told him to not to attend a civil trial in which he was found liable for defamation and sexual assault. Now, Trump has repeatedly lashed out against E. Jean Carroll, the magazine writer who won millions in the civil case against him. He doubled down on those attacks in a post on social media using a news story about the co-founder of LinkedIn as a jumping off point. Now, Trump posted an article claiming that LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman gave $250,000 to support Nikki Haley's campaign. And this is what he said. This disgusting slob, a Democrat political operative, is the same guy who funded a woman who I knew absolutely nothing about, sued me for rape, for which I was found not guilty. No, you weren't. She didn't remember the year, the decade, or much else. See, this is what he does. He's absolutely delusional. He absolutely lost that case. Yes, he's going here and saying he won, just like he says he won the election. He figures there'll be a certain faction of people that will believe it. And frankly, there is a small group of people that are dumb enough to believe fucking anything. Now, these statements echo those that caused Trump to lose the case alleging defamation and sexual assault in the first place. So Donald Trump is going through some things. Like, for example, we'll talk about this, I think, too. Donald Trump in his case in Washington, D.C., with Judge Chutkan and Jack Smith, he's appealing it. He thinks he has eminent immunity. The judge, Chutkan, said he didn't, so now he's appealing it. And now he's telling everybody they should shut the whole court case down because I'm appealing it. In fact, I'm not even going to participate in this case. I won't meet any of the deadlines. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm free and clear until the appeal is in. Now, the best thing would be that the appeal comes tomorrow or today. I don't know that that would happen. But the fact of the matter is, whatever he's saying here is bullshit. It's not true. At some point today, we'll get a response from Judge Chutkan. And I have a feeling it's not going to be what Donald Trump wants to fucking hear. Judge Chutkan doesn't play, and Donald Trump is an absolute idiot. Now, in a series of private emails between Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis and attorneys representing Donald Trump, the Georgia prosecutor assured the former president's legal team that she expects to put their client in prison despite their best offers. I told you that, these three top targets, Meadows, Giuliani, and Trump. She's not going to be done with this until these fuckers are convicted and put in jail. We always get the question, will they put Donald Trump in jail? Can they even do it? Well, I don't know about you, but Fani Willis sure seems to think she can and has every intention of doing so. Now, according to an exclusive report from The Guardian's Hugo Lowell, in one exchange, Willis wrote to Trump's lawyers, "We have a long road ahead. Long after these folks are in jail, we will still be practicing law." Well, that's a nice, subtle way of putting it. That exchange reaffirms reporting that Willis has no intention of working out a plea bargain in Trump's racketeering trial related to the 2020 presidential election. Now, in an interview on MSNBC last weekend, Lowell suggested to host Katie Fang that Willis has evidence the federal D.C. indictment did not have. Now, in Thursday's report, Lowell reported that Willis was responding to accusations made by the Trump team about her professionalism and their refusal to acknowledge that she is the duly elected district attorney. Yeah, we'll just act like it didn't happen, or she's not the person. Remember, you heard that before? COVID. Oh, that's not a thing. It's a fucking hoax. How did that work out for you, Donnie? Now, she wrote, "No one placed me here, and I've earned this title. I never practiced law by hiding the ball. I've enjoyed beating folks by making sure they have the entire file." Now, the report adds, relations between prosecutors and defense lawyers have been particularly strained in recent weeks. People close to the case have said, mainly since several media outlets published videotape proffer statements that the former Trump lawyers Jenna Ellis, Sidney Powell, and Kenneth Chesebro gave as part of the plea deals. Now, those were leaked. First, we thought Donald Trump maybe leaked it. We knew that Fani Willis didn't. She had no intention of doing anything like that at all. And she didn't. And we find out it was some lower level lawyer who was representing some nobody on the list of 19. But this told us a lot about what's going on and who's flipping and what they're saying. And this had to put a bee in the bonnet of Donald Trump's lawyers and make Donald Trump a little nauseous, because I don't think, well, Donald Trump is so delusional. He maybe really thinks he's winning. But every time this evidence comes out or these leaks come out, it's got to hit home for a little while. I mean, I'm sure he lets it go and then he thinks he's winning again. But Donald Trump is losing miserably. And he still wants to act like he's winning. And that's just not the fucking case. He's not. Now in D.C., Special Counsel Jack Smith dropped a bombshell filing in which he promised to introduce evidence against former President Donald Trump that includes his encouragement of violence and his knowledge of a foreseeable consequences. Now, on Tuesday, Smith filed a notice detailing evidence he'll be introducing at Trump's trial on charges of conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, and obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights. Now, the filing shows that the government plans to aggressively tie Trump to violence and threats that followed his false election fraud claims. The filing begins by noting that the evidence is being offered not to show the defendant's criminal propensity, but to establish his motive, intent, preparation, knowledge, absence of mistake, and common plan. Now, Smith detailed evidence he will present in 6 categories. Historical evidence of defendant's consistent plan of baselessly claiming election fraud. Now, he's going to do that by saying that even back as far as 2012, he was claiming election fraud. And then in 2016, he was claiming election fraud. 2020, we know, of course, he was claiming election fraud. So that seems to show us a pattern, one strategy that he's been using for a long time. And that's not going to bode well for Donald Trump in this particular case. He's a habitual criminal, I guess. B was historical evidence of the defendant's common plan to refuse to commit to a peaceful transition. Evidence of the defendant and co-conspirators' knowledge of the unfavorable election results and motive and intent to subvert them. They can prove that he knew he lost, he just chose to lie. And in these court cases, of course, intent is crucial. And apparently he has the evidence to do that. D, pre and post conspiracy evidence that the defendant and co-conspirators suppressed proof their fraud claims were false and retaliated against officials who undermined their criminal plans. E, pre and post conspiracy evidence of the defendant's public attacks on individuals, encouragement of violence, and knowledge for the foreseeable consequences. I'll bet that one with the rally shows up too, just to show the habit and the intention. You remember when he told a crowd at a rally, there was somebody heckling him or something, and he basically said, go ahead and punch that guy, kick him out, punch him. I'll pay for your legal fees. Yeah, he would have never paid for the legal fees. But even far as back as 2015, it shows that he would resort to violence. F, post-conspiracy evidence of the defendant's steadfast support and endorsement of rioters. Now, he wouldn't say this stuff unless he had absolute evidence of it. And if he has absolute evidence of it, it can go no other way than Donald Trump is a guilty motherfucker. In the 5th category, Smith writes that at trial, the government will introduce evidence of this conduct, including the defendant's public endorsement and encouragement of violence, and further will elicit testimony from witnesses about the threats and harassment they received after the defendant targeted them in relation to the 2020 election. For example, Ruby Freeman and her daughter in Georgia, the election workers, how he targeted them, called them out. They ended up getting stalked and getting threatened, and they're still kind of hiding out today. That's actual evidence of Donald Trump's effort to intimidate people and not be afraid to use violence to do it. It's not going to work well for Donald. Examples included Trump's encouragement of the Proud Boys and his attacks on Ruby Freeman, as I said. So the thing about it is that he is going to have a hard time explaining all of these things. I've told you before, you've got to trust Jack Smith. Even though at times it may seem like nothing's going on, you can almost be assured, you can definitely be assured that Jack Smith is building an airtight case. Jack Smith is not going to enter into this trial with a former president without knowing exactly what he has and what kind of decision will come out of it. I think Jack Smith knows that he's going to win this case. Let's be honest, Donald Trump is a horrible criminal. He's a fucking idiot. And every time he opens his mouth, he implicates himself in something else. He reveals more evidence. And I don't think evidence is a problem for Jack Smith in this case. I think he's got plenty of evidence. He knows he has that evidence. And Donald Trump is so delusional, he thinks he's got a chance to win, but he does not have a chance to win. He will not win because it takes a while and the media is telling us all these bad things. Oh, Donald Trump's going to be president. If he does, we're lost. All that stuff is bullshit. As I've told you before, Donald Trump gets one conviction. He's done. He's going to jail. I have no question in my mind that he's going to jail. And that one conviction will have a devastating effect on those people that might want to vote for him. Of course, the base will continue to vote for him because they're fucking dummies. But those people that are on the fence or that are more reasonably minded will not stick with Donald Trump after a felony conviction. People will say, well, he can run from a jail cell. Well, he could, maybe, but he ain't going to win. There's nothing that says Donald Trump can win. Everything, every sign says Donald Trump will lose, and he will. This whole thing is with the delays and all the bullshit and the rhetoric. It's just a wild Hail Mary pass into the end zone, hoping against hope he gets elected president. But he has no chance. He has zero chance to win the presidency. Trust me on this. I get calls from people, I get emails and DMs, people just terrified that Donald Trump might be president. And the reason they're terrified is because they hear this in the media. And that's exactly what the media wants to do, terrify you so you stay glued to the television set. So they get ratings and they make money. But there is nothing that suggests he's going to be president. Everything that's happened since 2020 has been a negative to Donald Trump. There have been no positives. He's lost support. He's lost votes. No way he wins in 2024. Just not going to fucking happen. All right. We will take a quick break and we will be right back. All right, let's talk about Mike Johnson. This has got to be one of the dumbest human beings. Maybe not as dumb as Donald Trump, but Jesus Christ, he keeps fucking up every time he opens his mouth. And of course, he's got big plans. House Speaker Mike Johnson is planning to hold a vote next week, formally authorizing Republicans' impeachment inquiry against Joe Biden. Now, does he have the votes for that? I would say no, if there's any common sense out there, but this is the Republican Party. Who the fuck knows? He better take that vote quick while he still has any kind of majority at all, because that's dwindling very quickly. He's got 2 seats majority. So that means he's going to have to get every Republican to vote to start this inquiry. This isn't the impeachment. This is just so they can investigate it, like they've been doing for the last 5 years and finding nothing. I swear to God, the reason they do this is even though they have no evidence, they know in their hearts there's something there. We just got to find it. They're never going to find it because, first of all, they're incompetent. Second of all, there is nothing, and they're just grabbing at straws. If they have hearings, the same thing will happen that's already happened. They'll be embarrassed. They'll look foolish. But, if they want to fucking do that, that's fine. I'm still not convinced they're going to get enough votes because there's going to be Republicans who have districts that are in areas where Joe Biden's popular, and that's not going to wear well on them coming up to the 2024 election. They seem to think they've got the votes, but they've never said, we definitely have the votes. They say, we think we do. We believe we do. That doesn't sound too confident to me. Now, the impeachment inquiry is already well underway, but Republicans hope the House action will stifle Democratic criticism that they didn't follow proper procedure by starting the inquiry without a vote. You remember that when the Democrats did something, they called them out on that and says, well, it's not real unless you have voted for an inquiry. So they did that. And then, of course, the Republicans do the very same thing, that they were complaining about with the Democrats. So now they're feeling a little nervous about that because, well, they look stupid again. And so they're going to do this vote. And I would just make this recommendation to Mike Johnson. If you're going to take the vote, make sure you're absolutely sure that it's going to pass. Because if it doesn't pass, you're going to look dumb as fuck. I mean, even dumber than you already look. Now, Johnson has stressed the difference between an authorization vote and an actual impeachment vote against the president. This vote is not a vote to impeach President Biden, Johnson said at a press conference. This is a vote to continue the inquiry of the impeachment. It's a necessary constitutional step. So we want to take a vote so we can continue doing the very same thing that we've been doing all the fucking long. Republicans say they're considering impeachment because they suspect, no evidence, Biden enriched his family by doing favors for son Hunter Biden's foreign business interest when Joe Biden handled U.S. foreign policy as vice president years ago. So far, their evidence is lacking, despite the conflict of interest presented by Hunter Biden's work at the time. Now, the younger Biden has refused Republican demands for a closed-door deposition, as I mentioned. Instead, he is insisting that his testimony be public. Now, Republicans this week threatened to hold him in contempt of Congress. Yeah, we know what that's worth. Jim Jordan was threatened to be held in contempt of Congress, and he still didn't show. The Republicans have proven the subpoenas by Congress don't have any teeth. It's just a suggestion. You could come in, you don't have to come in. I mean, that's what the Republicans did. Why would they think the Democrats would look at it any differently? And hey, he does want to come in. He just wants to do it in public, just like you offered initially. But once he accepted, because you thought he would deny coming, and he said he wanted it public, then you got a little squishy about it, because you know you're going to have this hearing with him, and once again, you're going to look foolish. The impeachment inquiry against Joe Biden is a clear effort to trivialize the two impeachments of former President Donald Trump. Now the likely Republican nominee for the 2024 election. Well, they tell us he was totally exonerated. Why would you have to have another impeachment to minimize that one if that was nothing? See where the confusion is here? They do this all the time. Trump also faced credible corruption allegations because he didn't divest from his business empire, instead simply handing control to his son. Trump's hotel in Washington took in millions of dollars from foreign governments during his presidency. Now, it's interesting. They want to try to impeach Joe Biden with zero evidence. They say that Donald Trump's impeachment weren't legitimate. Yet he has 91 convictions for the very same things that he's saying they didn't do. So the judicial system at least had enough sense and enough evidence to say, yeah, that motherfucker did it. But, you know, there's no accounting for Republicans. They love the law when it's being used against Democrats, but they should be immune from the law. I mean, that's their attitude, and it's fucking ridiculous. Now, Trump also faced credible corruption allegations because he did not divest from his business. Now, the quote is, everyone knows that the floundering Biden impeachment probe is designed to give Donald Trump something to say when it's pointed out that he has been twice impeached and is a proven fraudster, sexual assailant, and defamer of women who now faces 91 felony charges in federal and state court. Representative Jamie Haskin, the top Democrat in the House Oversight Committee, said in a press release. After having said the House wouldn't open an impeachment inquiry without a vote, then Speaker Kevin McCarthy in September directed House committees to do just that, prompting relentless criticism for Democrats. Now, McCarthy's move suggested that there wouldn't have been enough Republican votes to carry an authorization resolution. Now, this week, moderate Republicans who have previously been skeptical of the impeachment seem to be open to voting for an authorization resolution. However, Representative Don Bacon pointed to recent White House statements suggesting that Biden's administration didn't need to comply with the effort because the House hadn't voted. I feel like now we need to have a vote just so he provides information, Bacon told the HuffPost. I don't believe in revenge impeachments or anything like that, but that's pretty much what they're doing. It'll be very interesting to see if, in fact, they get the votes. You know, to be perfectly honest with you, I would say it's impossible for them to get the votes. But we got to keep in mind they did elect Mike Johnson as Speaker of the House. They didn't want to go with Jim Jordan because he was too radical. So what do? They vote for Mike Johnson, who is even more radical and more of an unknown. They only did Mike Johnson because he had been there shorter time. He hadn't pissed off enough people, and they figured he could get the votes. So now the question is, can they get the votes this time around for this inquiry? I don't know. My gut tells me no, but that's if I'm talking about people who use common sense, and we know they don't, so fuck. They might start the inquiry. But again, it's important to understand this isn't a vote on impeachment. This is a vote on, hey, we get to investigate it, which they've already been doing. So, and they found nothing. So I don't know that this is really going to change much. Now, I want to talk about Cassidy Hutchinson a little bit. She's probably one of the bravest souls in this whole mess. Young woman, 26, 27. She has a career ahead of her. She could have stood by Donald Trump like everybody else did and lived with the stench of Donald Trump for her natural life. She was smart, though, and she stepped away and she spoke out against Donald Trump. And we know Trump has a little trouble with his temper. Trump is a volcano that blasts ketchup MAGA, often behind closed doors, according to his former aide. Cassidy Hutchinson, the former aide to White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, told NBC's Lawrence O'Donnell that the Mar-a-Lago walls and others gracing the 45th presidents have been splattered by ketchup following one of his alleged tantrums. Donnie loves having fucking tantrums. Now, of course, we know that Cassidy Hutchinson testified before the January 6th Select Committee that she rolled up her sleeve to assist the White House valet rid the walls of the Oval Office dining room of ketchup after Trump went into a tizzy and tossed a plate of food when he learned that his then Attorney General William Barr came forward to dispel any notion that there was widespread fraud in the 2020 election. Barr was just telling the truth, which was a rare occasion for William Barr, but Donnie didn't like it. You don't tell the truth on Donnie, or he's going to have a tantrum. She was asked if the dish hurling was an isolated incident, and Cassidy says, yeah, no, it wasn't. It happened frequently. She says there are several that's probably being a little too underestimating there, Lawrence, she said. Lawrence O'Donnell. All the reasons that Donald Trump should never be anywhere close to the Oval Office again. This may seem like a minor one, but his volcanic temper. Cassidy said the 45th president was incapable of controlling himself and erupted often. And this is how he controls his employees. Once he erupts like this and loses his shit, people will do anything he wants just to avoid that happening again. That's typical of people of a narcissistic bent. That's what they do. They're bullies. And those people that are fearful of their jobs or whatever, they will fold to somebody like Donald Trump. Those are the people that Donald Trump loves to have. She said he deserves to be nowhere near the nuclear code buttons. I think that for an American listening to this, to know about how he reacts so irrationally and to think that his own hand-picked attorney general is telling him that is the truth, I think we should let the ketchup be displayed on the walls at Mar-a-Lago. I'm sure there's plenty of it down there nowadays. Now, Hutchinson testified to various scenes taking place in the wake of the election, including Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani asking if she was excited about the 6th, referring to the gathering at the Capitol on January 6, 2021. He said, "We're going to the Capitol. It's going to be great. The president's going to be there. He's going to look powerful," she recalled the former New York mayor saying. Once she returned to Meadows, she relayed the conversation and she said he told her things might be real bad. So they knew exactly what the fuck was going to happen, and they let it happen. Now, as I mentioned, Donald Trump was in the courtroom yesterday in New York in his civil lawsuit by Letitia James. And of course, Donald Trump had some comments upon seeing the work of a courtroom sketch artist in the New York fraud trial. There's no cameras in there, so there's a sketch artist. Now, speaking to MSNBC outside the courtroom, reporter Yasmin Basugian said that Trump walked by the artist on the way out of court and commented that the drawing was good. But when he came back, he had some criticism. He says, "Is that me?" Trump asked. "I think I need to lose some weight." Now, it's unknown if Trump was saying that to himself or giving a veiled demand to the artist's perception. Draw me a little better. Why bother, Donnie? We see you every day. You're a fat tub of goo. Sketch artists' pictures have been important to the Trump family members. When Donald Trump Jr. appeared, he begged the artist to make him look sexy. Well, that would take some work. Another artist from Trump's first appearance on the stand in the fraud trial made him look thin, but he was criticized for giving him dainty hands. You know how Donald Trump feels about his small hands. A previous courtroom sketch from June drew criticism because it made Trump look about 40 or 50 years younger. The courtroom sketch artist was feeling very generous, the Lincoln Project commented at the time. In his Washington, D.C. case, Trump was drawn looking old, meek, and angry. And in the pictures taken before the start of court, that's what he looked like: old, meek, and angry. Trump fans have responded with their own AI versions of the drawing showing Trump sitting next to Jesus Christ. Yeah, I'm sure Jesus has some interesting comments for you. But see, this is the point. Donald Trump has all these problems, all these felony charges, and he's so vain, he's worried about how the court sketch artist is drawing him. I got to look good. I got to look thin. I got to look young. Really? That's what you got to worry about? Jesus Christ. This guy is absolutely oblivious. He is a narcissist. He's also a sociopath and or a psychopath. He has no empathy for anybody else. He has no conscience, and it's all about him all the time. He probably doesn't even care about winning or losing anything as long as he looks cool doing it. I'm certain of that. I mean, I've known people like him, and the perception people have of them is absolutely the most important thing that they have. You take away their image, they are fucked. And that's why I tell people that this particular trial, this lawsuit, while there would be no jail time involved, this may be the most devastating one. And the good news is it's going to be over in about a month or less. Donald Trump is testifying on Monday, and he's the last witness. There'll be some other stuff they have to do, closing arguments and shit like that. So it won't end on that day, but it will end shortly thereafter. And when it's done, we know he's already lost the case. The judge has already found that he is guilty of massive fraud, business fraud. They're now just trying to figure out how much he's going to pay and what's going to be taken away from him. And I have a sense that it's going to be bigger than the $250 million, and he is going to be absolutely hobbled by doing any kind of business. In order to pay that money, he's probably going to have to sell things off. And he's not even in control of his shit anymore. It's in receivership. Now, some people will say, well, he's just going to appeal it and drag it out forever and ever. And that's certainly possible. But in the civil case, if they say you owe $350 million, he can appeal, but he got to pay that first. So the effects of this lawsuit will hit him before he can make an appeal. He can make the appeal and draw it out, but he's going to be broke as a motherfucking joke in the process. So I think this lawsuit, this court case, may be the most devastating, certainly the most devastating thing to date, but it's going to take away Donald Trump's image, his confidence, his money, his power, his property. And that's all Donald Trump is. It's about image to him. And when you take away his image, he's going to be a broken soul, a shell of his once tubby body. So when this happens, things are going to change a little bit. Donald Trump may either get really crazy and really loud, or he'll just kind of cower and fade away. Not sure which. I'm guessing the latter will probably be it in the beginning, but when he finds out it does no good, then he'll just kind of mope and cry and whine like he tends to do. Now, here's a guy we haven't talked about much as of late. Mike Lindell, Mr. Pillow. Now, in a new interview with Laura Trump, that's right, Donnie's daughter-in-law, MyPillow CEO and election conspiracy theorist Mike Lindell discussed his professional downward spiral as he has become more known for his election denialism than his pillows. God, who could see it coming that Mike might tank his company if he kept up doing what he's doing? Apparently, Mike Lindell didn't see it coming. Lindell began the discussion with a story of his drug addiction in the 90s and early 2000s. He's going to remember those as the good old days, which he ultimately managed to overcome as he was growing his pillow company with religion and his own drug dealers cutting him off. Now, Laura says, you've been at the bottom, Mike, and you've been at the top. And I'll tell you, I feel like when people rise up and they're at the top, top of their game, and they're outspoken in a way that maybe mainstream media doesn't like, that maybe folks on the left don't like, Hollywood doesn't like, you become a target and they try to basically ruin you. At what point, though, do you think you became a target to the left? Well, here's the thing. You might become a target, but if you're lying and trying to sell conspiracy theories, you can't blame it on anybody else. You're doing it to yourself. Now, he went on to say the first one was, I was the media darling around the country before 2016. No, you weren't. You were some big dumb guy selling fucking pillows. You were no media darling. Nobody really even knew who the fuck you were until you started telling conspiracy theories. I was the American dream on steroids, right? Well, there you go. Some delusions of grandeur. And I went out. This is on August 15th of 2016. I got invited by our great real president, Donald Trump, to come out and see him at Trump Tower, at which point Lindell knew, despite never having voted before, that Trump was going to be awesome, only to receive backlash when he did a press release praising Trump. So Donald Trump reaches out to him because he's got money, and Donald Trump would like to get some of his money. And because Donald Trump is and Mike Lindell are both the same kind of people, you pat him on the back and tell him he's a great guy and he's very successful, and they'll do anything for you. Mike Lindell clearly is a similar type of guy because he did, and he threw his entire country a company away. Now, Lindell went on after 2020 to become one of the loudest proponents that the election was stolen, holding a cyber symposium where he had all kinds of evidence and making an ill-fated bid to lobby the Supreme Court to throw out the election results. As this happens, he began to be dropped from retail stores and suffered severe business losses, as well as a defamation lawsuit from the uh, election companies, the Smartmatic and Dominion and such. And he still hasn't gone to court for that as yet. And that's going to be devastating because they're suing him for like $1 billion. Some people might say, well, maybe he will cut a deal. What kind of deal are you going to cut on $1 billion fucking lawsuit when you don't have no money? What are you going to do? He's in a bad spot. If he isn't broke now after Dominion gets a hold of him, he will be fucking destroyed, much like Donald Trump is going to be destroyed. Now, ultimately, Lindell has even fallen out with Fox News, which he has increasingly attacked as they have become resistant to interviewing him amid their own legal fallout from pushing election conspiracies. Yeah, we know that Fox News lost $780 million, almost $800 million to Dominion in their lawsuit. And Mike continues to spew the shit that got them sued. He's a liability if they put him on the air with them. So they pretty much ignored them. And Mike has been angry about that, calling out Fox News. If you're not my buddy, I'm going to call you out as a criminal. And that's pretty much what he said. He even talked about suing Fox News. Good luck with that, dumb motherfucker. Now, Fox News has even more problems because after they lost $800 million to Dominion, now Smartmatic is coming, and they're asking for more money. They're asking for $2.4 billion. And Smartmatic, at least up to this point, said they're not going to cut a deal. They're not going to take an offer. They're going to court. They feel like this information needs to be revealed to the public, and they're going for the big money, the $2.4 million. I got to tell you, if you were going to bet on somebody, don't bet on Mike Lindell. He took a pretty sweet situation after coming out of his drug addiction, and he threw it all away. And it's funny, when he first started doing it and he saw the reaction to his company, you would think he would say, shit, that's a little scary. I'm going to back out of this. Nope. He doubled down, tripled down, quadrupled down. He didn't fucking care. He really thought he was going to win. He thought he was right, even though he couldn't come up with any evidence. Well, as they said, a lot of stores dropped him. American Express credit card company took him, canceled his account. A lot of shit went down. Last heard that he was selling some of his equipment. And as I've said, his headquarters is about less than 10 miles away from my place. I drive by it frequently, and I always get a little sad when I do. Not because I give a fuck about Mike Lindell. He's doing what he's done, and he's doing it to himself. But he had a lot of employees, just normal folk trying to pay their bills and feed their kids and send them to school. For no reason of their own, they're going to end up losing their jobs ultimately. I suppose many of them already have, because their boss is a fuck up. I guess we could all say that at one point or another, that we've had a boss that is a fuck up. But when they cost you the job, a job that you probably were doing well, just because they make a mistake and refuse to admit they made a mistake, that's got to be very difficult. If I worked at My Pillow, I would have started looking for another job 2 years ago, because you could see this coming. You could see it, writings on the wall, that we aren't long for this world because our dumb fuck boss can't shut his goddamn mouth. I don't feel sorry for Mike Lindell. A lot of people might. Guy came up from addiction to being wealthy, an American dream story. but then he went ahead and fucked it up. And a lot of people compare it to an addiction. I don't know if he's back on drugs or not. You would hope he'd had that at least as an excuse, but he has an addictive nature. So when he got on board with Donald Trump and Donald Trump acted like his best buddy, he decided to go all in, and he did. He never voted before. He wasn't involved in politics. He just jumped on the cult train and rode that for all it's fucking worth. And what it was worth is every penny of his fortune. He has been destroyed financially. He's been destroyed reputationally, and he's really got nowhere to go. I mean, the best he can probably hope for is start drugs again and go live on the street. And as I say, I don't feel sorry for him because he's done this to himself. And even when he's gotten some red flags and some evidence that he might be on the wrong track, he didn't change at all. He continued to do what he's doing. To this day, he's acting like he is right. He's like Donald Trump. He's like Jim Jordan. They always talk about evidence. Oh, we've got all kinds of evidence, but there never is any evidence. You have to wonder if they're fooling themselves or they're really trying to gaslight everybody in the world. They think they're so smart that they can say stuff that they know is absolutely not true and somehow force feed it to us and make us believe it's not true or that it is true. Well, that's not going to work. It hasn't worked. And Mike Lindell is in trouble. I'm going to be very interested to see where he ends up. Now, Mike Lindell, I don't know if he was tied to any of the insurrectionist shit or not directly. Probably not. Fox News, though, that might be a different story. We may be seeing some indictments for the likes of Sean Hannity or Tucker Carlson or something like that, because we knew that they were in pretty heavy communication in and around that time. Donald Trump took advice and cues from Sean Hannity. And if he did, well, then he had to have something be somehow involved in the insurrection. And if he's involved in the insurrection, I guarantee you, Jack Smith knows, and he probably has some evidence. And Sean Hannity himself may get an indictment. I'm just hoping we can pick this stuff up a little bit and get things moving. Donald Trump is doing everything he can to try to get out of this trial in Washington, D.C. Like I said before, he tried to stop it because he thinks he has ultimate immunity. Well, Judge Shutkin basically pointed out that he doesn't, as has every other judge he's brought it to. But he keeps trying. He's hoping against hope that somebody will buy into his bullshit and cut him a break. I will tell you this, there are no breaks for Donald Trump anymore. There's only going to be bad news and worse news. And today is the best day of his life because tomorrow's going to suck even worse. So we're going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.